My high school was all about weightlifting. Guys, girls, it didn't matter. Teachers, cafeteria ladies, they were all about weightlifting. In fact, they created a special PE class called Fitness PE. Now, Fitness PE was probably designed because our football team never won a game, and they wanted a special place for the athletes to do some more time in the gym. Now, Fitness PE was cool for lots of different reasons, but one of the things that I loved about Fitness PE was they had a ginormous whiteboard, a huge whiteboard on it, and it was called the Glory Board. And believe me when I say it was glorious. It was ginormous, and the whole point of it was that it had the top 10 strongest guys in our school. Now, how did they come up with that number? They had 4 different lifts. They had bench, incline, squat, clean, and they would take the maxes of these guys' lifts, and then they would come up with a number, and that number was how they came up with the top 10 strongest guys. It was the Glory Board. Came out of heaven, right? So the Glory Board went along for a couple months, and I don't know if my school got, audited by the gender equality police or something, because all of a sudden, in the corner of the gym, at about 1/16 of the size, was this little tiny whiteboard, and it said Glory Girls. You guessed it, it was the girls' version of the Glory Board. And there might have been 4 girls that really cared about being the strongest girl, right? Well, unfortunately, I'm a little embarrassed to say I was one of those 4 girls that cared tremendously. Now, I played on the tennis team, and there was a girl named Sarah, and she was the number 1 girl on the team. Sarah was number 1, I was number 2. Sarah was a senior, I was a sophomore. Sarah was cool and popular and pretty, and I just kind of thought that I was. And we were rivals with everything. Now here's the kicker. Sarah and I had the same last name. Our last name was Wilson, and it just made our rivalry like a sibling rivalry, right? Well, one day, you can guess what's gonna happen. She's number 1 on the Glory Board, and I'm number 2. That's right, I'm number 2, just like we always are. She's 1, I'm 2. She sees me in the hallway and she says, "Yo, Wilson, I upped my bench max. You're gonna be number 2 forever." You know, she's taunting me with all of her cool senior friends, and that just didn't go over very well. I'm like, well, I'll show her. It is on like Donkey Kong. As soon as I got into my class, my 4th hour Fitness P class, I look at my coach and I say, "Coach, I have to up my max. I've got to max out today. I don't care what happens. We got to do this." So he gets one of the football players to come over and spot me, which I was really excited. It was one of the cute ones. So he comes over and I lay down on the bench, and I'm like, okay, I whisper this small prayer. It might be the end of my life, but I'm going to do it. They put the big 45-pound weights on the edge, and I've never done this before. And I go down, and I'm going up, and in my mind, I'm like, this is working. It's happening. I'm actually lifting all of this weight. My right arm is soaring. It's doing exactly what I tell it to do. My left arm, not so much. My left arm starts doing the little quiver shake, right? And then all of a sudden, mentally, I'm telling it, go, stop that, and it's not obeying my commands, my mental commands. And it starts shaking, and then I hear, my arm drops. My shoulder pops out. It drops about 6 inches below. The bar is totally crooked at this point, and I am screaming like the little girl that I am, "Help!" And I am screaming, and the guy wakes up from whatever he's doing. He lifts the weights up, he's probably with his pinky. He puts it on the bar, and I lean up, and praise God, it popped back into place. Oh my gosh, I was in so much pain. The whole weight room knew I was in pain. It was awful. But I learned a very important truth that day. I learned that there are weights that we are not meant to bear. There are weights that simply, they don't make us stronger, they actually hurt us. And you guys have been in this great series called Weightlifting for the last couple of weeks, and that's what you've been talking about. That there are weights in this life that we carry, that we collect. Kind of like I have this jacket that I love. It's a really furry jacket. It was just an awesome gift for Christmas. I wear it all the time. Even though it's not really cold in Louisville, I like to pretend, right? And I wear my jacket all around, but there's 2 problems with this jacket. Number 1, it's really fuzzy, and people kind of like to come up and pet it, which is awkward, like strangers in Target, petting me. I'm like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I just thought your jacket looked so soft, get off me." But then there's another problem with the jacket. It collects everything. You have that piece of clothing? It collects lint, it collects dog hair, I don't even have a dog. It collects regular hair. I found a Lego in it the other day. I'm like, how does this happen? How does this happen? And I think that when it comes to weights, we are like that. Some of you are like my jacket. You're scrolling through your timeline on Facebook, and you're collecting weights from people you barely know, right? Oh my gosh, they're suffering. They had to put down and you're just crying and you're like, oh my gosh. Or maybe you've turned on the television in the last couple of weeks for Super Tuesday or Super Saturday and you're like, oh, the weights. I mean, you collect them everywhere you turn. Some of you don't maybe collect them. Maybe they just kind of feel like they happen to you. You've been in this series for this will be week 3, and the first 2 weeks you're kind of listening and you're like, yeah, I get that, but I'm not really living that. And then something happened this week. Something happened this week that totally rocked your world. It brought you to your knees. The weight was too much for you to bear, and you're like, whoa, this weight is killing me. See, unfortunately, the world that we live in values strength. The world that we live in values the physically strong. It values those that can kind of manage lots of weights and not just bear emotional weights or bear the weight of the world, but we learn how to juggle them. And you can read self-help books on how do I keep all of these plates spinning? How do I do that? But here's the thing, you guys, is we are not created to bear those kinds of weights. Matthew 11, Jesus is talking and he says this in Matthew 11, verse 28. He says this, come to me, all you who are weary, all you who are heavy burdened, all of you that have looked at your timeline too much, all of you that have found Legos in your jacket, all of you that are just living life and it just seems like it keeps piling on. You, come to me, I will give you rest. Now we hear this, and for those of us that are going through it, these are good words, but for those of us that maybe think, I don't know, life is manageable, I'm doing okay. It's hard for us to hear. It can be hard for us to accept the fact that maybe we really are weak. See, the world doesn't value that. Our culture doesn't value weakness. We don't value weakness. We want to look up on the glory board of life, right? We want to compare ourselves to the person sitting next to us saying, well, I'm doing kind of better than them and maybe not as good as them. I'm maybe like number 7 on the glory board. I'm doing okay. We want to feel like we're competent. We want to feel like we're capable. We want to feel like we got it all together until one day we realize we don't. We don't. Something happens that brings us to our knees and we realize, wow, I really don't. See, I believe that the church needs a new sign. Not LifeBridge Church, but like the church, the large church, like the Big C church. We need a new sign that says weak is the new strong. We need a new message to the world that's lost and broken that says, look, we know you're hurting. We know you're broken. We know you're carrying too much. We know you're tired. We know you're weary. We know you're weak. Why do we know this? Because we are too. Because we are too. We need a new sign, my friends, that says weak is the new strong. Temple Run. Have you ever played it? If you've played it, you know that it's a lot of fun. It's a great game. For those of you that are like, what on earth is Temple Run? Temple Run is a game that was created in 2011. It was created to play on a tablet or an iPhone or some sort of mobile device. And it's an endless 3D running game, which means this guy that you see, he's an explorer. He's left a temple, he's stolen treasure from a temple, and he's on the run of his life, and he's running at top speeds at all time, and you're kind of controlling him. You're making him jump over things, you're making him slide under things, you're jumping over big, chasms. It's a really fun game, it's crazy, but they're running away from these guys. These are the evil, demonic monkeys that are trying to eat him, right? Okay, it sounds gory, but it's really not. My 6-year-old was playing this game one day. He's playing in the back seat of the car, and he just is loving himself some Temple Run, right? He's playing the game, and he comes up and he says, Mommy, how is it that Temple Run guy can go so fast? Like, he never slows down. He never stops. Like, how does he do that? And normally when my 6-year-old asks me this question, I say something like, I don't know, ask your dad. Like, it's my lazy mom answer. It's my cop-out answer. If you've been around a 6-year-old boy, you know they ask like 17 questions a minute, and it's just tiring. But this day, I don't know what got into me. Maybe I had more caffeine than usual or more sleep, but I decided to turn it into this teachable moment, right? So I said, Mason, it reminds me of this verse out of Isaiah chapter 40. I said, it reminds me of this Bible verse that says something like this. It says, even youth stumble and fall, even youth grow tired and weary. I give them my version of it. I said, but those who trust in the Lord, those who hope in the Lord, their strength is renewed. They can run and not grow weary. They can walk and not grow faint. Well, I'm looking at Mason as I'm saying this through the rearview mirror, and I can see light bulbs going off right above his head, and his eyes are getting big, and he's like, Mommy, I never knew it. I never knew the Temple Run guy was a Christian. And I'm like, don't tell people that. Just don't repeat it. Teachable moment, fail, right? I failed. Oh, man. But here's the thing. When we talk about weakness, when we talk about strength, we know our culture doesn't value it. We know we don't value it. We don't want to see ourselves weak. We don't want to see ourselves needy. We don't want to see ourselves vulnerable. We know what our culture says. We know what we think. But what does the Bible say? What does God really think about weakness? And that's the question that I want us to dive into here for a moment. If you have your Bibles with you today, could you open with me to Isaiah chapter 40? Isaiah chapter 40. We're going to start at verse 6. Isaiah 40, verse 6. It says this, it says, "A voice cries out, and I said, what shall I cry? All people are like grass, and all their faithfulness is like the flowers of the field. The grass withers and the flowers fall because the breath of the Lord blows on them. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of our God endures forever." The word of our God endures forever. At first glance, this is kind of a discouraging passage. Like, we're like grass? Really, God? That's the best you have? Like, we are grass? Like the stuff that you walk on that doesn't last? I don't know. It just didn't sit well with me when I first read it. I thought, really, we're grass? We wither, we fall, we falter, we fail. And then I started thinking about last summer. Now, I don't know what your summers are like here in Michigan, but the summers in Louisville are kind of brutal on your yard. And I decided last summer that I was going to make it my mission to not be the shame of the neighborhood. Like, I didn't have to have the best yard. Like, I'm not out there with scissors, But I really, really wanted to have just like a green space. I mean, it could be green weeds. I didn't care. I just wanted it to be green. So I watered it every morning. I watered it every night. I mean, I did everything. I fertilized it. And finally, at the end of the summer, towards the end of the summer, my husband comes up to me. He goes, "Baby, you just work really hard on our yard, and it looks good. You've done a good job. You've worked hard. It looks wonderful. But do you know the price of green grass?" And I'm like, oh, here it comes. Like, I knew it. He's the one that gets the bills, and he's like, "Our water bill is double, Jacqueline. That is the cost of green grass." Why? Because grass withers. Grass doesn't last in the heat of a Kentucky summer. It withers, it falls, it fails. Skip with me down to verse 27. Verse 27 in Isaiah says this, "Why do you complain, Jacob? Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, my cause is disregarded by my God? Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired and weary, and his understanding no one can fathom." Don't miss this verse. This is amazing. "He gives strength to the weary, and he increases the power of the weak." And then here's the Temple Run verse. "Even youth grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord, they will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not grow faint." In this passage, you guys, we're contrasting God's endless power and endless strength with our frailty, with the fact that we fail and we falter and we wilt. And you could look at that and you could be like, is God boasting here? Is he just like, you're not strong, I am? No. He's pointing out a reality. It's a reality that if you're a guy, this is a hard reality to sit with. I don't know why it's harder for guys. My husband's ego, maybe, I don't know. Like, it's harder for guys to say, yes, I'm weak. I'm weak. But that's the reality God's pointing out. And not just the reality of this is, I'm strong and you're weak, but it's the reality that he has on offer to you and on offer to me his supply of strength. That when we're weak, his strengthness comes through huge. John chapter 15, verse 5. Jesus got this. I mean, are we surprised that Jesus understood this? Jesus is sharing this to his disciples, and he says this. He says, "I'm the vine, and you are the branches. You remain in me, and I in you, and we're going to bear a lot of fruit. We're going to do a lot of great things for my kingdom." But he says this. He goes, "Apart from me, you can do nothing. Apart from me, you're weak. Apart from me, you're like grass. You wither, you falter, you fail." It's not necessarily the best news when you take a first glance at it, but it's the reality of where we're at, is that we are weak, whether we want to admit it or not. Some of us really like to keep up appearances. And for my younger friends, if you're in high school, I mean, there's like an image that you're trying to portray, right? On social media, we only show the pictures of the good days. Like, I'm a mom of 3. I don't show the hot mess pictures of like my kids like destroying my house. And I don't snapshot that and put that on Instagram. I really don't. I put the like perfect angelic pictures of them in their Easter dresses. And like that's what I want people to see. Because we want to keep up appearances like we got it all going on. My husband tells a really funny story about when he was younger. And his dad was a pastor, and his mom, the sweet pastor's wife, and she has 3 boys, 3 unruly boys. And she's bringing them to church one day, and the oldest boy is 16, and he's driving the family car. And for whatever reason, the middle boy, Mike, he jumps out of the car a little bit early, and Matt runs his foot over, like runs him over. And Mike is screaming, my foot, my foot. This is all in the church parking lot, of which their dad's the pastor. So he's screaming, well, Matt, the driver, he thinks that, oh my gosh, I ran over my brother's foot. Maybe it's still on it. So he backs the car up. He runs over it again. So he is screaming like, oh my gosh. I mean, my husband says there was a tire mark on his jeans, okay? That's to give you an idea. Well, the mom is like, Matthew Miles, you're grounded till you're 40, and she's like all huffy, and she's like, and she's freaking out as they're walking up to church. They park the car. Apparently Mike, the one who got run over, could walk, and they walk up to the church, and his mom is so sweet. If you knew her, she's just the sweetest, and she's like, okay, everybody's okay. Okay, you're okay, I'm okay, this did not happen. Okay, everybody's okay, we're walking in. I mean, the appearance. This sweet little pastor's wife, her boys are crazy, running each other over in the church parking lot. But she's trying her best to keep up this appearance like we're okay. We got it all together. We can do this. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 9 and 10, the Apostle Paul, if you're not familiar with Paul wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. That's like over half of the New Testament is what Paul wrote. And he had lots of reasons to boast, to brag about how good he was, how awesome he was. And he had lots of reasons to do that. But it says here in the 12th chapter of Corinthians, he's writing a letter to the people of Corinth, and he says this. He says, I am really struggling with this thorn. I have this thing I'm struggling with, this thorn, and I don't know how to get rid of it. I've asked God to take it away, and he's not doing it. But this is God's response to me. This is what Jesus says to him. He says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses. What? I delight? Okay, I can maybe put up with weaknesses, but delight in weaknesses is like a whole nother story. That's like a whole nother level, Paul. I don't know if I'm there yet, that I can delight in weaknesses. But he goes on to say this. He goes, in insults, in hardship, in persecution, in difficulties, for when I am weak, then I am strong. Don't miss this. When we are weak, he is strong. God's power is on display. Our weakness, friends, is a platform for God's power to be seen in our lives and in the lives of those around us. The Bible teaches weakness is a good thing. I want you to think through of maybe the people you learned about in Sunday school in years past. I want you to think about Abraham and Isaac and David and the disciples. I want you to think about Noah. Think about all these people. They were normal people, just like you and me. They had weaknesses, they had insecurities, they weren't good at things, they doubted God, they're not magical, they're not superhuman, and yet somehow in their ordinariness, God uses them to do something extraordinary. That is so exciting, the fact that God would use ordinary people to do the extraordinary. I've been reading this book. It's by a pastor in my town in Louisville. He's a teaching pastor at a church there, and his name's Kyle Idleman, and he wrote this book called The End of Me. The End of Me. And in chapter 8, he says this about weakness that was just so good, I wanted to share it with you this morning. Kyle writes this, he said, God is always strong, but in our weakness, that strength goes viral. The world sees it's not about anything but him. At the end of me, I find a strength in God I would never have experienced otherwise. I find a strength in God I would never have experienced otherwise. Have you experienced that strength? Have you been in a place of weakness where you've seen God's strength go viral, where you've seen his strength explode? Several years ago, my husband and I, we really felt God calling us to adopt. We had some friends that adopted internationally, and we just thought, this is what we're going to do. We love to travel. We like other cultures. I love Chinese food. Like, let's adopt overseas, right? And so we naturally started looking at that, and I applied to a million places. Door shut, door shut, door shut. And I'm like, okay, maybe, I don't know. Maybe I just need to persevere. So I email more people. I call more people. God shuts about 57 more doors. And then I realized maybe we're not supposed to do this? I don't know. Like, I thought we were supposed to, but maybe not. I'm on the way to church one day, and I see a sign that says foster parents needed with a telephone number. I call up the number. I really didn't know much about foster care. I call up the number. I start doing all my research, all my recon, and I find out something that really disturbed me. That in my county in Kentucky, Jefferson County, in my county alone, at that time, there were 1,000 kids in foster care. Oh, that stat hit my husband and I like a ton of bricks, and we've been looking all over the world, and God's just tapping us and saying, right here in your backyard, there are 1,000 kids that need a safe and loving home. Now, I didn't know much about foster care. I didn't really even know, like, how does this whole thing work? Well, for those of you that maybe you're like me and you had no idea what it was, it's foster care is what happens, is where kids go when their parents can't take and meet their basic needs. They can't provide a loving and safe home. Maybe it's from alcohol or drugs or mental illness. Maybe it's because of a physical illness, but they can't take care of their kids. And kids come into care for two reasons, for abuse or neglect or a combination of those two. So we found out about this, and we also found out something that parents are given an opportunity to get their kids back, to rehab, to go to classes, to go to therapy. And if they do what they're supposed to do, they can be reunited with their kids, and it's awesome. They have a second chance. But maybe some of them don't have that opportunity. And then in the state of Kentucky, at least, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, then the foster parents are given the opportunity to adopt. Well, I want to show you a picture of the first little guy that was our first foster son. This is Mason. Mason was in foster care for 1,150 some days. See, the burden and the weight of foster care is that these sweet little kids, they have no idea. There's just this huge question mark over their life. Am I going to go back to mom and dad? Are they going to show up for their visit today? And for the folks that are caring for them, for the foster families, they live with this question mark over their life. Like, what's going to happen to this little kid? Well, when I tell people I'm a foster parent, I get some really interesting responses. I get people that like rear their head back and they look at me and their chins are like tripled, and they're looking at me like, oh, you're a foster parent? Why would you do that? Like, you're bringing all this drama into your house, and don't you know those kids have been through a lot? They're going to wreck your home. Like, you have no idea what they've been through. And that's the first response I get. Like, you, Jacqueline, are insane. That's the first one. And yes, I might be a little insane, but that's not the response that bothers me the most. The response that bothers me the most is that people that they think that I'm like some sort of saint. Like, I'm Mother Teresa of Calcutta, and I have like in this home all of these orphans, and that somehow I magically don't get attached, and my heart doesn't break for them if they are returned to their family. They say stuff to me like this: I could never do that. I could never do that. I fostered a dog one time, and I could not even give the dog back. Like, how could I do that to a kid? This is what they say to me. They say, I could never do that. And it's like, I want to grab them by their shoulders, not their neck, but their shoulders, and I want to shake them, and I want to say, I am not strong enough to do this. I can't do this. I fall hard for these kids. I had a boy that was in my home for 5 days, and I cried like a baby when he left. I saw this picture on Facebook the other day. Maybe you've seen it too. And it's got a picture of Rosie Riveter. She's flexing her muscles up there. And it says, I'm a foster mom. It's not for the weak. Oh my goodness, I beg to differ. Nothing has driven me to my knees like being a foster parent. On my knees for these babies that may or may not be returned to a good situation. You guys, it rips me apart. And you know what? I think about how many times in my life have I said, oh, I could never do that. See here, lest you think I'm here just like with a sign up about being foster parents, that's not my point of telling you this story. My point is to say this: if God's calling you to be a foster parent, go do it. But here's the main point. How many times do we say, I could never do that? Because you know that you don't have it in your own strength to be able to do it. You know that, like, I could never pull that off in my own strength, so I'll just avoid it. Man, I can't forgive that person, so I'll just avoid them. And, oh, yeah, they've been asking me to step up and do this thing at church, but I can't do that. I'm not good enough to do that. And we just avoid these situations and these circumstances where our weaknesses might be exposed. Friends, we are missing out on an opportunity to see God's power at work in our life, to see him take our ordinary, normal life and do something extraordinary with it. We're missing out on opportunities to see his strength go viral because we are afraid. Because we're afraid. See, we carry around these weights. We think we have to be strong enough. We think we have to appear a certain way to others and to ourselves, when the truth is we need to take the words of Queen Elsa. We need to take this queen's words to heart. We need to let it go. Don't make me sing the song, right? We need to let it go. And some of you this morning, it's like you have your fist and you're holding them, and you've got all of these things, and you're like, no, I can't trust God with that. I've prayed before, and he didn't answer my prayer, and he didn't answer it the way that I wanted him to, so I'm not trusting him with that, Jacqueline. You think you can? No, I can't. I'm holding on tight, and your knuckles are white as you're holding on to these weights that you're not created to bear, that you think they're making you stronger, but they're really killing you, and you're holding on to them, and God's like, no, please, let them go. Do you know I have had God pry my little fingers open by his grace? I've seen him do that, but you know the only way that I can keep my hands open before him is this promise that he makes to us in his word that says, I am with you. I will never leave you. I don't know how familiar you are, but this book has lots of promises in it, but the main promise of Scripture, the one that's repeated the most, do you know what it is? It's, I'm with you. I will never leave you. I'll never leave you. Maybe your spouse left you years ago and you still struggle. Maybe your mom or your dad, they walked out on you, and I am so sorry that that's part of your story. My dad died when I was 12, and I still carry some of those scars. But you know what my favorite promise of Scripture is that he won't leave. We have a heavenly Father that will never leave us. He will never forsake us. Why? Because we're his kids. I want to close with a story. My daughter, who is now 4, when I was 35 weeks pregnant with her, for those of you that maybe haven't birthed a human, they usually stay in about 40 weeks. So I'm 35 weeks pregnant with this little girl. And I wake up one morning, I'm like, something's not right. Something's not right. Never been through labor in my life. I have no idea what to expect, but I know something's off. And I call my doctor that morning, first thing, and he says, Jacqueline, you need to get to the hospital. Like, I don't know what's going on, but you need to get to the hospital. We need to make sure things are okay. I get off the phone with the doctor, and I go to my husband. I'm like, I cannot have this baby today. Josh, like, I can't do it. He's looking at me like, I don't know that you have a choice, you know? Like, he's just like, hello? Like, you don't have an option here, you know? And I said, no, we can't have the baby today. Like I don't have my bag packed. I've not been to any of those birthing classes, those weird, like, I've not done any of that. Like, I don't even know how to do this, Josh. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you need to go to the hospital. And I said, and the other reason I can't go is the person that we had lined out to watch that sweet foster boy that I showed you a picture of. What you couldn't tell in that picture, I was very pregnant at the time. In fact, Mason came, and several weeks later, Adele came, our daughter. And so I'm telling Josh, I'm like, look, you can't even come with me. I can't have the baby by myself. Like, I'm not going to do this. So I pack my bag, and I drive myself in my little Honda Civic to the hospital. And instead of having my sweet husband drop me off at the door, no, like, I'm hossing my bag out, you know, like, I'm just doing this alone, you know. And I go into the registration, the lady slaps a bracelet on, she goes, okay, do you need another bracelet? Like, is there anyone? I'm like, no, it's just me, lady. And she's looking at me like, you're strange. Well, I go in, I labor all day for 9 some hours. My husband gets there in the afternoon, and the doctor comes in early evening, and he says, hey, I'm going to check you, and we're going to see. And then he says, you know what, you're having this baby today. You're having the baby today. And at that point, you know, he leaves to go get stuff ready, and I'm thinking, and Josh leaves to go text, like, my mom and everybody else, like, start the prayer chain, like, Jacqueline's freaking out, you know. And I'm sitting there, and I'm alone in this hospital room. I'm tired. I'm actually exhausted. I'm weak, I'm vulnerable, I'm scared, not for myself, but I'm scared for this little tiny child that I'm wondering, is she gonna be okay? Is she gonna make it? Why am I going 5 weeks early? And I am literally, I'm panicking. And out of my panic, out of my desperation, I start praying a prayer. Maybe you've prayed a desperate prayer before where you're like begging God. I'm like, God, you don't understand. This is my little girl. Like, this is my baby. And Lord, you've got to watch over her. You've got to take care of her, Lord, because I'm not in control here. Like, God, you've got to do this because please, Lord, be with her. And as soon as I finished my desperate prayer, I heard this voice in my heart, friends. It was loud, it was clear, it was strong, and it was so gentle and so loving. And this is what I heard the Holy Spirit say to me. He said this, he said, I'll be with her. I will be with her, but you need to know this, Jacqueline. You are my daughter, and I love you, and I am with you. Oh, my gosh. He said, it's going to be okay. I laid there crying in that hospital room because I thought, here I am so worried about this little girl, and Jesus says, I want you to know you're mine. I'm with you. You are my daughter. This morning, I don't know where you sit. I don't know what burdens you're carrying. I don't know why you can't let go and let God take your burdens. I don't know. I wish we could have a cup of coffee and you can tell me about it and we could pray together. But here's what I want you to know. You can trust him. You can trust him. You can trust a God who will never leave you. If he just came and saved you and left, that would not be this case. But he stayed, he saves you, and he walks with you. He wants to do life with you. He won't leave you like your experience has been maybe on this earth. He will not leave you. You know why? Because you're his little girl. Because you're his little guy, and he thinks the world of you, and he wants you to know that in your weakness, he is strong.